and screaming in the room. So I've had a 2-year-old technology issue and he's now screaming in a different room, so you won't be able to hear him. Okay. So I'm sorry for coming on too late. Morning, everybody. I can see there's quite a lot of people in today. So there's Lydia, Chedza, Abu, Amani, Abdullah, Dowd. Is that Khadija? I do not know who. Oh, I do. Hamza. Morning, Hamza. Elsie, Lydia, Ella, Sahil. Wow, Dilraj. Lots of people in today. And Arvin. And who's Razwan? I'm not sure who that is. So put your name so that I can see who you are. Right, today we are going to try and use some of the things we've learned this week to work on something today. Okay, but today is it's fairly difficult and complicated for you to follow. Okay, so you get morning Sahar. So you're going to really need to concentrate during this, and it's a very short lesson in terms of there's not a lot of content, but it's quite difficult, the content. Okay, so we're going to start, and today we're going to try and put fractions, decimals, and percentages on a number line. Okay, but actually what that actually means is all we're going to try and do is put them in order from smallest to largest. But I wanted to go over what we've learned this week so that we can understand exactly how we're going to do this. Okay. So looking at converting fractions to decimals, which is what we did on Tuesday, okay, we worked on understanding that 4/5 actually just means 4 divided by 5. Now this is important because actually what we're going to do later is going to convert everything into decimals. Everything's going to be decimals. And then we draw our bus stop and we put 4 in the centre and 5 on the outside. And then we completed it just like we would another. The only difference was we put decimal points in and we put our imaginary zeros in that actually we needed. Okay. Then we went through it just as normal and we worked out that 4/5 actually equals 0.8. So this is something you did on Tuesday and then we recapped it on Wednesday. And now we're just recapping it quickly on Thursday to help you with today's lesson. Okay. Then yesterday we had a look at converting decimals to percentages. Okay, we looked at converting how you convert a decimal to a percentage. Now today we will be working on this, but we'll be working on it slightly differently as we'll do it in reverse order. But we're going to do this one again together. So remember we drew a quick place value grid. There was absolutely no reason for me to do anything beautiful. There is no marks in maths for your artistic performance. Okay. Now, if you are a brilliant drawer, by all means, draw yourself whatever you want. But in maths, all we need to do is draw some lines and label them. Okay? So I can't obviously do that on my screen, so I've obviously drawn a table. Then we're going to plot our decimal points and our numbers. So yesterday we did this number, 0.625. And then we're going to multiply them by 100. What does multiply by 100 mean I'm going to do to all of these numbers? What does multiply by 100 mean I'm going to do to every one of these numbers? Yeah, I'm going to move 2, but which way am I going to move them? I'm going to move 2 places, but which way? Yep, so here it's I'm going to move 2 places to the left. So I'm going to move all my items 2 places to the left. Oh, and that's going to give me the answer of 62.5. Okay. Now, yesterday, excuse me, yesterday we did these. If you're unsure of how to do this, or you're unsure how to convert a fraction to a decimal, you can watch this video today, and then you can go back to Tuesday's or back to Wednesday's video, and you can have a look at those videos to make sure that your understanding is solid. Now, quite a lot of you are capable of doing different things in maths. We don't all work at the same speed and the same level, and that's absolutely fine. There's things that when I was your age, I didn't understand. In fact, fractions, when I was your age, I struggled with until I was probably in high school and probably in the second year of high school. So it's important not to kind of go, oh, I can't do fractions, or I can't do percentages, or I can't do this and I can't do that. But the best thing to do is go, I struggle with it at the moment, but I'm going to challenge myself to do it. So if these two slides you've just seen, sorry, and you're thinking, I really don't know what he's talking about, I'm not sure, then actually watch this lesson today, go back to the previous lessons, and then you have the opportunity there from there to consolidate, to really understand exactly how to do each of these things. Okay, we're going to move on. What does putting things on a number line actually mean? Well, I said this earlier, but putting things on a number line is just the same as order these numbers from smallest to largest. Okay, or order these numbers from largest to smallest. And you often get these questions in a reasoning test, so it'll have a number line there for you, or you get a simple question in an arithmetic test which says order these numbers smallest to largest. So this is going to help you in both of those two situations. And we're going to do this today by using the word equivalency. What does equivalency actually mean? What does it actually mean? Who's going to be first today? Who's going to get the first shout out for a correct answer? It means more than the same, Sahar. It's got a really mathematical term. Not the same. Yep, it does mean equal, Dilraj, but equal to what? Equal to what? So it's definitely equal because it's got the word equi in it. It doesn't mean equivalency, Arvin. It is equivalency. Equal to what? Think about maths. Think mathematically. What are we talking about when we're looking at numbers? What are all of those? They have something. And we put them in a place something grid. Who's going to be the first? Equal to a number? No. Think about what I just said. I've talked about having a place something grid. So what does equivalency mean? It's equal something. Yes, sir. Well done. It's equal value. So it's having numbers of equal value, okay, in different denominations. Okay, so if you look at the example there, I have 4/5, and the equal value in decimals is 0.8. And you can do this for lots of things, different numbers all the way through our system, okay? So it's of equal value. Now, you should, and I said to this yesterday, memorize 4 different equivalencies in fractions, decimals, and percentages, okay? And these are that 1/4 equals 0.25, which equals 25%. 1/2 equals 0.50, which equals 50%. 3/4 equals 0.75, which equals 75%. And 1 equals 1.0, which equals 100%. Now, it's important you memorize them because these are going to help you put things on a number line, because these are the things that we can actually mark off straight away. So if you don't currently have them memorized, then I'm going to give you 30 seconds just to write them down so that you absolutely know. If I said what was 0.5 as a percentage, you'd be able to tell me. So I'm just going to give you 30 seconds to do that. Okay, so you should, by the end of this week, have those memorized. It's not a significant amount to do. And actually, what would be really good is if you could then explain the relationship between each of them. Okay. Now, everything we've done this week should be able to give you that opportunity to explain it. So, what I'd really like you to do is I'd like you to memorize them and then explain why each of them are equivalent. Okay. Not to me, but to your parents. Because your parents might not know why, but you definitely do know why because you've done it this week. Okay? All right. So let's move on and look at three different numbers. We have 2/10, 0.8, and 30%. Okay? Now, the first thing that you're going to do is you are going to draw a number line. So you can do this along with me. You can watch me do it, and then you can have a go and do it later. But your first thing you're going to do is draw a number line, okay? And on that number line, you're going to break it into sections. Now, the first section is going to be a half, okay? So the first section is a half. And you're going to mark that with, because you already know, half, 50%, or 0.5. Now, because it's easier from there to mark our quarters off, you're going to mark 1/4 and 3/4. And you can see that I've already done that on the screen. Now you will, at that point, also mark them with 1/4, 25%, and 0.25 for a quarter. And at the other end, for 3/4, 3/4, 75%, and 0.75. So what you should have right now, or what you should have when you have a go at doing this, is a number line with a half, 3/4, and 1/4 marked on it. Now, I've not done that today because it will, when we do this, it will get quite busy with all the different calculations. But for you, you definitely need to mark on a half, 3/4, and 1/4. Okay? Put your thumbs up if you understand where we are so far. Oh, this chat's slow today. Morning, Zuleika. Morning, Noreen. Morning, Sahar. Great. Okay, so we're going to move on. Morning, Fies. We're going to move on. So what we're going to do is we're going to use what we've learned this week to convert everything to a decimal, which makes it much, much easier then to compare and contrast different numbers. Okay, so as you can see, we've already got one decimal there. But I'm not going to place that anywhere yet because I don't know if it's smaller or if it's larger than any of the others yet. But I'm going to look at our first one, which is 2/10. Now, as we already know, 2/10 means 2 divided by 10. Okay? So I'm going to work this out exactly how I would work it out, and I have worked it out this week. I'm going to draw my bus stop. I'm going to put 2 in the bus stop and 10 on the outside. And I'm going to put my 0, because I know it's going to be less than 1, and my decimal points. And then I'm going to divide 10 by 20. And 10 goes into 20 2 times. So my equivalent decimal of 2/10 is 0.2 or 0.20. I'm going to do the same now with my percentage. So I draw myself a quick place value grid, nothing beautiful, and I plot my numbers. But this time, I've already got my percentage. So actually, my numbers will go in the correct columns. I have 3 10s and I have 0 1s because I have 30%. Now, yesterday, when we were trying to convert a decimal to a percentage, we multiplied by 100 and went 2 spaces to the left. Okay? Today, we're converting the opposite way. So I'm converting my percentage back to a decimal. So which way am I going to go? How many spaces? And why is it that many spaces? So we talked about why it's that many spaces, but how many spaces, why, and which way? So here, well done. It is definitely 2 to the right, but why is it 2 spaces? Why is it 2 spaces? Okay, I'm dividing it by 100, but why is it 2 spaces? What does that mean? Why is it 2 spaces for 100 and not for anything else? What does the place value grid tell us? Well done, Priest and Marnie. Dowd. Abdullah. You're almost there, Sahil. It's not multiply by 10 2 times, but you're almost there. And yes, the cheat is it's got 2 zeros. The cheat is that, but we really need to understand the mathematical understanding behind it. I think Sahil was the nearest. So I'm going to tell you. So yesterday I said that actually when we go one space, we multiply by 10, and we go another space, we multiply by 10. Oh, well done, Sahil. It's the same this time. Each place value column is 10 times more or 10 times less than the previous column. So if I'm in the tens column, the ones is 10 times less than the tens column. And if I'm in the ones column, the tenths is 10 times less than the ones column. So as a result, what we're actually doing when we are dividing by 100 is we're dividing by 10, and then we're dividing by 10 again. So the reason that we go 2 zeros is because it's 1 for 10 and then 2 for another 10. Okay? Now the cheat of it is, yes, and what we teach you and maybe what you hear is that actually count the zeros, that's how many you jump. And that's fine, but we just need to understand the maths behind it. So in this case, we're on 30. We're going to move everything 2 spaces to the right. So we're going to move our 3 and we're going to move our 0. And that gives us a decimal equivalent, 30% of 0.3. So now we've got our 3 different numbers in the same denomination, which makes it much, much easier now to compare and contrast them. So we can see that 0.2 is going to come first. Now, the reason that you have put in your quarter, half, and 3/4 now is important because actually you can see that I know that 0.2 is less than 0.25, so it is going to go before my quarter. I know that 0.3 is more than 0.25, therefore it can go after my quarter. And then my last one is 0.8, and I know that 0.8 is more than 3/4, more than 0.75. Therefore, it's going to go after my 3/4. Now, it's not super important that you are exactly right when you're placing things on a blank number line. What is important is that you are placing them in the right area. So if you were to put 0.3 before the quarter mark, then you wouldn't have been right because actually 0.3 is definitely larger than 0.25. Now I know this is complicated because we're, if you like, bringing together lots and lots of the skills we've learned this week. But the steps for all of this are at the bottom of the screen for you to follow. So if you're stuck, you can rewind this video and you can try again and you can keep going until you understand it, okay? We'll look at another one anyway, just so that we can work it out together again. So I want you to draw yourself a new number line and write 3/4, half, and 1/4 on that number line. And I'd like you to write them in decimals. So I want you to write them in decimals and I'd like you to post them in the comments section of the decimals, of the equivalent of quarter, 1/2, and 3/4. Yeah, I don't want the answers yet, but well done, Arvin. So I want the equivalent of 1/2, 3/4, and 1/4 putting in the comment section in decimals. Don't worry about it, Arvin. Well done, Fies. Yep, the equivalents are 0.25, 0.5, and 0.75. So draw yourself a number line and mark those on. Well done, Tabor. Well done, Sahar. Well done, Kaimani and Sahil. All right. Now at this stage, we have one decimal, which is our 0.45, and we have a fraction, and we have a percentage. Okay. So we're going to convert them all to decimals. So let's look at the first one. We've got 40/50ths. Well, actually, if we simplify this fraction, we can simplify it down to 4/5. So actually, we just took off the zeros of both 40 and 50. It would give us 4/5, which makes our fraction much simpler to deal with. As before, it means 4 divided by 5. And it means we can put our 4 in our bus stop and our 5 on the outside. Well done, Lydia. And we can work through it just as usual. So we know that 5 doesn't go into 4. We place our decimal points in. We have our zeros. And then we work out how many times 5 goes into 40. And we know it's 0.8. So the equivalent decimal of 40/50ths is 0.8. Okay. Then we look at the 60%. We draw our place value grid. And we're going to place our numbers in the place value grid. And as before, we're going to move 2 places because we're dividing now to the right. To the right, this way on your screen. Okay, so we move our 6, we move our 0, and we can see that the equivalent decimal of 60% is 0.60. So now we have all the decimals in place. We can see the order they will go in because it's much, much easier. But because we've drawn our number line with quarters, halves, and 3/4, we're going to put them in the correct place. So we're going to put our 0.45. Now 0.45 is before our 0.5 because it's less than half. Our 0.6, well 0.6 is between half and 3/4, so between 0.5 and 0.75. And then our 0.8 is after 3/4 because it's after 0.75. Okay, so again, the steps are fairly complicated, but if you follow them at the bottom, it's going to tell you to do it, how to do it. And I am telling you how to do it too, okay? It's brilliant to see lots of people taking part. Well done, Dilraj, you're doing really, really well, and it's really good to see how you're grasping these complicated concepts. We're going to do one last one together, and then I'm going to leave some for you to do, and then I will come back and I will give you the questions of the day. Okay? Now this one's slightly more complicated, but it's the same principles. So now we've got 7/8, 0.79, and 72.5%. Okay. We're going to draw our number line. And make sure that you're marking your quarter, your half, and your 3/4. Okay. Ideally, what you want to do is choose one denomination that you're going to use. So in this case, I'm using decimals. I could use fractions and I could use percentages, but I'm going to use decimals, which means actually all I need to do is mark on my decimal equivalents on my number line. So 0.25, 0.5, and 0.75. Okay. I'm then going to look at 7/8. Well, 7/8 again is exactly what we've done before. We're going to 7 divided by 8, and we're going to put that in our bus stop. Now this time, we're going to put our 0 in on our decimal points, and we're going to write in some zeros. Working through it slowly, I'm going to do 8 into 7 goes 8 times and leaves me 6 left over. 8 into 60 goes 7 times and leaves me 4 left over. And 8 into 40 goes 5 times. So my decimal equivalent of 7/8 is 0.875. So this is 3 decimal places, okay? Then we're going to look at our 72.5. So we'll draw a quick place value grid. Now, mine is super quick because it's technology and it can just draw it straight away. But you will draw yours however you want to. Well done, Dilraj. Brilliant. Then we're going to plot our numbers in our place value grid. Now, this is really important. If you have a decimal percentage, it's still important that you line them in your place value grid in the correct way with a decimal point in the center between the ones and the tenths column. Then, because we're dividing, we move everything one place to the, sorry, 2 places to the right. That's your right. And we're going to move them 1, 2, 3. Which means our decimal equivalent of 72.5% is 0.725. Now this is where writing on your decimals at the beginning is going to help the most. These numbers are very close to each other. In fact, the difference between the lowest number and the highest number is 0.15. So it's not a huge difference. Well done, Faiz. Well done, Fatima. And well done, Noreen. I think that was who just went off my screen. It's 0.15 is the difference. So we're very minimal, and therefore, if you've wrote your decimals on your number line, it's going to make this much easier. So we're going to plot our first number, and our lowest number is 0.725. Now, why it's helped writing our numbers on is we know that 0.725 is less than 0.75. Now, it's not much less than, it's actually 0.025 less than, okay? It's very small. However, that means it allows us to have a guide of where we need to be. Our next one is 0.79, which is more than 0.75, but less than 0.8. And then our last one is 0.875, which is more than 0.9 and clearly the highest number. So today's lesson is all about you converting fractions to be equivalent in one denomination, okay? So in our case, today, we worked on converting everything to a decimal because all this week we worked on converting fractions to decimals and decimals to percentages, which you can do in reverse order. I'm going to move on to the last slide, and I want you to choose 2 chilies that you think you can do. the last chili today is super difficult, but I'd really like you, if you think you've got this and you understand, to have a go. Okay? So you're either going to do 1 and 2, 2 and 3, or 1 and 3. And you can send me your answers on Class Dojo. I'm going to leave this screen on for a few minutes so that you can have a go at writing them down and make sure that you've got the correct things written down. If you haven't fully understood today, that is absolutely fine. This is a difficult concept to teach when I'm face to face with you and when I can sit and chat through things with you and we can have a conversation. So if you've not got it, wait for the video to upload, go back through the video, pausing things that you don't quite understand, and listen to it again. That's really, really good advice, because in a normal world, when we're in school, once you've heard me say it, we don't generally go back over it and go back over it again. So while you're not getting the one-to-one tuition that you would receive in school, you can always take the opportunity to listen again. So write these down. I will be back in 2 minutes. Okay, so hopefully you've written them down, okay, and you have selected 2 that you want to choose. If you've not managed to write them down, don't worry about it. It is absolutely fine. You can go back over the video in the next 10 minutes and you can just skip to this part and it will help you. Okay. Once again, thank you for a wonderful week and thank you for all joining. I'm glad that you've all got a chance to have a chat with each other, and we all know now that McDonald's in Chorlton is open for business if you're driving through. Have a go at these, send them me on Class Dojo. I'm going to leave it on the final screen for a few more minutes, which is just a couple of word questions for you to have a look at and see if you can answer those too. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. I will see you again on Tuesday morning so that you can have another week of things. I'm undecided what we're going to do yet, but I'm probably going to look at some algebra and giving you the opportunity to understand that. The reason I've held off from algebra so far is because it's quite difficult as a concept to understand, and I don't want people to go away with misconceptions and find it really, really difficult to manage. But we'll see how we're getting on, and I'll have a go at doing it over the weekend. Have a brilliant weekend. Thank you, Kaimane, seeing as though you wanted a shout out, and Isa, and Fatima, and Arvin, and Zuleika, and everybody else who's joined. And thank you for putting lots and lots of effort in. I am going to go now, so have a great weekend. I'm going to leave it on the final screen for a couple of minutes. After that, I will switch it off because I have to go to another meeting. Have a great day, everybody, and a great weekend.